So this afternoon is very important if we want to talk, and this is what we're going to do, about disease and what to do with it. But in order to get our lunch digested and calm back down again, I think we should listen to a poem.
Thank you. This comes from a book I've written of poetry called Fear Small, Love Big, How to Survive a Chaotic World. This is number 24 in this collection, entitled Vitality. So I think it ties in quite nicely with what Patrick has said this morning and acts as a bit of a segue for this afternoon. You may not know, but for life to exist, energy must flow and a balanced state persist. According to universally accepted norms, energy is never lost, it merely changes form. Through observation, we have learned that positive potential converts to negative through a neutral field and then returns. From north to south and back again, it's all very neat. The cycle occurs and the circuit is complete. If this harmony remains, the cycle will repeat perpetually. Any departure from this state will cause the energy to dissipate and the health of the system to deteriorate. Recovering this crucial ambivalence ensures equity is once again obtained and its vitality reclaimed. Thus, your energy anatomy has held you since before your birth, an intelligent organisation of elements, ether, air, fire, water and earth. Dynamic yet stable, a simple dipole affords another opportunity to mature your soul, to cradle an electromagnetic personality and in resonance exhaust your skill through the sustenance of a massive act of will. Life is a balancing act, and you win the race when in a state of ease you choose to embrace your polarities. Positive, negative, active, passive, objective, subjective, alkaline, acid. Aliving for eons your resilient ions, simply and surely know what to do. If on reflection you can ensure that you favour neither side, then they will for certain help you gravitate towards what is true for you.
Very well put. Thank you very much. So, maybe you've noticed that the title of each section is the nature of. It's the structure of the nature, it's the nature of the disease, the structure of the disease. That is what is important to understand before we can make some decent comments on it. If we want to talk about disease, then what is it? Definition. And this is something that maybe I can give out as a general statement. In all the discussions people are having, I fail to see or to hear them define what they're talking about. Ask them. Oh, they talk for 3 hours about terrorism, and I don't know what they're talking about because nobody defines it for me. And if you define it well, then you can take the definition and you can ask questions about the definition. So we make it clear. Definition of disease, as stated in the medical profession. We'll get to the medical profession definition as well. So it's basically, it's a disorder. It's a disturbance of the structure or the function of a living organism. Disorder confirms that, because it's a disruption of the systemic functioning, the need arrangement, the structure. So function and structure, either of which is disturbed, that's what we call a disease. Right? So So, the medical profession goes along with that. Structure and function of part of or all of the human body. Okay, now we're clear. So, let's go back. What do we know? We know that all those structures and functions are actually an expression of energy. We don't need to understand the matter. The matter is just a simple expression of. It's the energy that's important, because that is the level at where all the exchanges are made and all the changes happen. Creation of matter has limitations in each frequency, in each department. And that's important to know. There is something that holds it together, so it's a balance. The matter, living organism, you and me, there is a balance in these frequencies that makes it stick together, hold together. And it's about the exchanges in the energetic field, and luckily for us, there are only two types of changes. It can either contract, be compressed, increase pressure, or it can expand, decrease the pressure, open up. Nothing else. The whole of the universe is doing nothing else but this breathing exercise. And out again. That's all it is. So in effect, it's only about contraction and expansion of energies. So that is for the individual what we need to look at. Ancient knowledge, in this case Ayurveda, how do they define diseases? They keep it simple. When the doshas are disturbed, you're diseased. Okay, whoa, what are doshas? It's simple. Yeah? It's impurities in the energies. The vata, the pitta, the kapha energies. When you get impurities in that, meaning out of balance, then you're diseased. It's as simple as that. So we can basically say that in the old days, the very old days, disease was seen as a disturbance of biological energies. In those days, nobody really took any notice of the physical matter, only to gain information from. They didn't use any physical matter to heal. When you look at how the Ayurvedic medicine is described in the Western world, it's now all about diet. Yeah? You've got to have the right diet for your dosha. In Ayurveda, the traditional Ayurveda, first thing is your birth chart. The energies in which you were born. That's the first thing they look at. That's the most important thing they look at. Then they look at, or the methods they're using are meditation, mindfulness. Then they're using the yoga exercises, if you like, as a way of concentrating your mind. And right at the end, there's also a dietary list. Right at the end. And that's all you find now about, when you open a book of Ayurvedic medicine here in the West, it's all about diet. To rectify your doshas. No, 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 no. First of all, an Ayurvedic medicine, just like a Chinese doctor would come to the village once a year, yeah? And he would advise people on what? What can you do once a year? Well, he would read their birth chart, would look at the energies under which they were born. Then he would look at the problem that they're facing now. And he would give them advice on how to change their life to be more in line with the energies that were fixed in them. That's basically what they were about. So, structure and function, right? Structure and function. Disruption caused by either contraction or expansion. That's all we need to know. Bear that in mind, that's all we're going to talk about this afternoon. Because that is where the imbalance occurs. That is what is causing it. Right? That means that there were only two causes of diseases. Right? I just reduced a book of over 1,000 pages with medical diseases, internal diseases. Over 1,000 pages I've just reduced to 2 words. All you need to know to help yourself out of disease is 2 words. The rest of the book you can burn. Why? Because it's a wood created out of details, and you get lost in it. As a doctor, I got lost in it. I bought the book because I thought there was wisdom in it, and so anything that I didn't know I could find in the book. Until I started looking things up in the book, and then from one chapter I had to go to another chapter to try and understand what they were saying in that chapter, and to another chapter, and I got lost. Don't do it. 2 words. So there are 2 types of diseases. This one and that one. Is it simple enough? So there are 7 different types of energies. Each of those energies can contract. Well, I say can contract. They're constantly breathing in and out. They're constantly contracting and expanding, right? But within range. And when we're talking about organisms, living matter, now we need to remember that we are fixed. We have, for each of those, have limitations. So one specimen has the 7 systems we all have, but they're slightly different. Yeah? One may have a liver which is not happy, coping with an awful lot of work. Yeah, sensitive liver or sensitive bowel. Actually, the medical profession has made it into a wonderful new disease. Yeah. So the 7 systems are there, made out, each of them made out of the 7 tissues. But since we're all limited in those bits, depending on where the shift is in these energies, we may reach or we may come close to our limit, while for somebody else it isn't. So there's the difference. Constant changes of contraction and expansion, and we need to relate that to where the individual is in his makeup. So what does that mean in practice? So if this is my balancing point, it's nothing more like a radio dial. Yeah? When I contract, I go down to lower frequencies. So I shift my balance point to lower frequencies. When I expand, I go to higher frequencies. That's literally what it is. So you can visualize the old with digital ways, it's taken away our visual representation of what is actually happening. The old radio dial, you could move that to lower frequency by turning a knob in one direction. Turning it in the other direction just brought it up to higher frequencies. Yeah? And same thing here, we'll come back to that later. If this is a particular radio station, so I'm listening to the radio station and I have clear connection. You can understand everything they're saying. Perfect. When I start fiddling with the frequency, first I move away a little bit. And what happens? I can still hear it. Still everything. Now and again I have a crackle, but still good. The further I go, it starts to fade. Can't hear it properly. Can hear bits. Lots of interference on it. Right? So, in other words, the frequency that the radio station is sending out on has a range. But there are limits to it. And as long as I stay within those limits, I can recognize the station. I'm still listening to the same radio station. Go beyond that, and it's gone. I have no idea what it's talking about. I have no idea what they're sending out. Can't hear them anymore. Similar to your body. We're going to come to that. We're going to come to that. So a lower frequency, what does that mean to a vibrating system? Lower frequency means that it doesn't go up and down quickly. It's slower. So that means that there is less movement, that it's more compact, and for a physical structure it means stability. If there's less movement, it's more stable. Right? Higher frequency goes up and down very fast, very quickly. That means more movement. That means a great flexibility, but less stability. And those are basically the two extremes in life. You can find them out everywhere, right? One of the things that always stayed with me is a tropical storm. You have two ways of dealing with the storm. You have the oak tree way, which is I'm standing here and I'm not going to go anywhere, right? You can blow and you can blow, but I'm staying here. Stability. Deep into the ground, and that's where it is. And if you defeat me, then all of it comes up. Roots and everything. And he falls over. Right? That's one way of dealing with the storm. The other way of dealing with the storm is the palm tree. The storm blows its head off, tries to get the palm tree to break. And the palm tree does this. And it bends. With the wind. It bends completely vertical. With the wind. Wind stops and it comes back up again. Here I am. I survived. It's not about deep roots. It's about the trunk, which has got a lot of mobility, a lot of frequency too. Yeah? So that it can use that to withstand the power of the outside world. So, again, oh, I wish I was more like you. A load of rubbish. It's not good having a lower frequency, having more stability. That's better than having more flexibility. That depends on the circumstances. Sometimes it's much better to have more flexibility which means that you're less stable because you can't have both. One is more than the other. You're leaning towards more this and another person more that. The only thing that you need to concern yourself about is, who am I? What's my strength? Can I cope with this crisis situation the way the oak tree does? Have I got that strength? Or do I need to work like a palm tree? That's what it's about. So, how do I do that? When I want to change from a high frequency to a low frequency, there's only two ways of changing frequencies, of changing contraction and expansion. There is going from high to low, meaning compressing it, which means increase the pressure on the field, just crunch it all together, or you cool the field down and then it will shrink by itself. Lower frequency, so the result of this is less movement, but it becomes more solid based, more stable. Or other way around, from low to high, you decrease the pressure around the field and the pressure in the balloon will just make the balloon expand. Yeah? Or you increase the temperature of the field itself and that will expand the energies within the field. So whenever there's a disturbance of those frequencies that the organism is made out of, that's what disease is. Yeah? So it's a disturbance of an equilibrium. Something has changed. Now, again, we live in a society where we want to preserve everything. Preserve means don't let it change. Nature is different. What nature says is, right now, I'm in balance. I've reacted to that and I've dealt with this, and in order to get by that, this is how I do it. Now things change. We said this morning, everything is constantly changing. Nothing stays the same. So now my circumstances change. So now I have to adapt to it. I have to readjust. So now I move to here. I move to a new balance. This move is a change, is a disruption of an equilibrium. And we call that disease. Nature calls it evolution. When the dinosaurs are no longer there, that's evolution. It's a new balance. Yeah? When a pack of wolves move into a certain area, they change the way life is in that area. Is that good? Bad? It's different. But a new balance will occur. People say to me, oh, we are working very hard. We want this area here bring back to its natural state. My question is, what nature are you referring to? 50 years ago, 200 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 2 million years ago? Where are you going back to? I'm telling you where you're going back to. Nowhere. Because the circumstances are not the same anymore. And you can't recreate them unless you put a dome over it. And lots of people come and visit it. And after 20 years you have to close it down because it's all rubbish and you can't maintain it. It's rubbish. You can't go back. It's constantly new balances. And you have to recognize it not as a disease. We'll come to that. It's a new balance. That's what it's about. And every specimen, every organism is a balance. It's a balance when it gets born. And I'm hoping that nobody in this room has the idea that it wants to go back to that balance. You want to be different from when you were born. No? So, why would we want to bring nature back to a previous time? It's a specific balance, and the purpose of it is that it evolves. It changes. So trying to get back to how I was feeling a week ago, in essence, is also rubbish. It's an idea that you can never be worked out. Right? So, we need the human being and the 7 systems that it's made out of. We need to understand that they're in a complete flux. That the only thing that is really important is the balance between the 7 systems within the resonant frequency of that one specimen. That is important. How do they relate to each other? Are they fighting one another? And one way to create an imbalance within the 7 systems is to overload one system, and then it will have to deal with that, which means there's less time, less energy available to seek the balance within the other. How can I do that? Oh, one way of doing it is drinking a bottle or 2 of whiskey every day. Yeah? Another way of doing it is taking high dosages of vitamin C every day. You ever ask yourself whether your body really needs that? And if you say yes, and my body needs it, then my question is, and how the hell do you know that? I've never received a message from my body saying, can I have please a bit of vitamin C? Yeah? It may have asked me for a bit of water, or it may have asked me for a bit of sugar, but it never asked me for vitamin C. It never asked me for any other weird preparation that we put into our system. And the point is that we put into our system on a continual basis, every day. What you're doing is, you're overloading your system. You're taking it away from its proper use, which is, what are the other 6 systems doing? And are we okay? Me and my brothers, are we okay? Do we function as one whole instead of fighting each other all the time? And there are easy ways to make these systems fight. My nervous system, my thinking, tells me I need something. And my gut says, oh no, please don't. I don't want it. I'm in conflict. I create the imbalance, and the imbalance of energies is disease. Right? So, the balance between the 7 systems, the balance between the 7 tissues. And each of those, every time, at every level, needs to be specimen specific, individual specific. But we need to allow it to evolve and not stay the same. Energies are in constant motion. They need to be. They need to be. We are looking for the perfect life, the perfect balance. Right? In nature, if perfection were to exist, because it doesn't, then if it was perfect, it means that all the interactions would be perfect, meaning not disturbing one another, that means that there is no more movement, no change at all. If we're talking perfect in nature, then that means there is no movement in nature. That means there is no evolution, no change. The weather doesn't change anymore. That is exactly what is described in the Garden of Eden. Right? That's perfection. But that's not creation, as in universe creation. That is stillness. Everything stays the same. Here, forget it. There is no perfection in nature. Why not? Because it's evolving, it's growing, and we need to grow too. So don't strive for perfection, and don't think that if you judge to be in a perfect balance, feel happy, everything is perfect, everything goes well, then take on board the Chinese way of doing things. If everything goes well for you, this is the time to worry, because it won't stay like that. The Chinese businessman knows that when he goes through a period where whatever he touches, whatever he does, turns into gold, he worries, because he knows it's going to stop. Decline is upon him. And the other way too. If you've lost everything, you end up in the gutter. You can't see where tomorrow is going to come from. Start laughing. Be happy. It can only get better. And it will. By itself. And this is important. We'll find out. So, the structure and the function, that's important. The reason for that is, I talked about the structure, we have our limitations. If the frequency changes that much, that the resonant frequency gets broken, the structure is gone. Kaput. Burst open. Finished. Before you get to that, a change in frequency, just away from the balancing point of that radio station, yeah? The function of that tissue, of that system, is altered. It's still the same tissue, it's still the same system, but it functions slightly differently. That is why the change, or that is what will happen when there's a change, a slight change in frequency. We need to balance those, right? Nature has done this since the Big Bang, whatever you may think that is. Since the first day of the universe, nature has balanced things out. And it allows for change. But it also, at the same time, responds to that change. When we're talking about human beings, well, animals and plants, living organisms, it's a healing, we call it, a healing tendency. It's a healing that every living organism carries within itself. And it operates automatically, all the time. It's there all the time, it never stops. Why? It simply responds to every small change that happens in our surroundings. Yeah? And what it tries to do is adapt. And there's two ways of adapting. One is small change, I pull it back to the balance system that it was before. If the change is something bigger, I make adjustments So within my system, so that I can cope with that. Yeah? In a way, that's what we do every year, going through the seasons. Yeah? We adapt. We adapt. Not only in the winter are we wearing warmer clothes, but also your system, for instance, your circulation system, will keep more blood away from your skin and draws it further inside to keep your inside warm and to reduce the radiation of heat outside. It adjusts. It can do that. And then it warms up again and it just opens the lanes up and more heat is radiated out when it's appropriate. That is all within your normal limits. Your system can do that. Yeah? So that is what we mean with adjusting. So if we look at what that actually means, right? Responding to a change in balance. There's two ways of doing it. There's two ways that your body does it, or gives signs of it. Change the internal energy. So, if there is a lot of pressure on you, contraction, yeah? Your system is going to contract. How can you rebalance that? By opening up your energies more. So instead of becoming depressed underneath, what you do is you look for ways of feeling happy in spite of the pressure. You're not denying the pressure. You're just doing something else inside, not taking too much notice of the pressure. Or your system is going to try and rebalance it within the whole of the system. Which means if the pressure comes in on one side, then your system, your material system, is going to find a way where it can put extra pressure on that will keep that in balance. That will make the whole functioning of the system a bit harder, but it is in balance. Give you a visual for that. Scales. Some weights either side of the scales and it's in balance. Yeah? Now something changes. On one side of the scale there's more weight put on. So your scale starts to tip. Two things you can do to restore the balance. One is keep your finger on this side and pull it up a bit. Right? And the other one is put more weight on the other side of the scale. And it will do that. But of course, if you keep adding weight to it, eventually the scales will collapse because it's not strong enough to keep the weight. Same in our body, in our biological system. So you can either there's external pressure, lighten the mood internally, or, and how this works out is, if I have a contraction of one part of my body, like for instance, a contraction in my hip, underneath the hip joint on one side, I may get low back pain due to contraction on the opposite side above the joint. Keeps it in balance. And when I'm young, I don't care about that. I don't feel it. I've got plenty of energy to spare. Right? But when I get older, I go, oh, my back. And the first thing you notice is your compensation side. Because that's younger. And that's more on the outside. This is usually much deeper. So 2 ways of rebalancing it. The first step, very important step, is observation. What are the changes that you notice? And I put changes in energy as well as changes in matter. Mainly energy, as in, have a look at your mental state, if you can. If you're willing to do that, sit down and actually evaluate what words come out of your mouth, what thoughts you're busy with, what emotions come up. Have a look at it. And I put that under the energy bit, because it's not a physical thing. Yeah? But have a look at that as well as your physical ailments. Yeah? What are you complaining about? Tiredness. Sometimes it's only tiredness as part of your body. Oh, my left leg is tired. I used to say to patients, they would say to me, yeah, my left leg feels very tired. But then again, I've been working hard in the garden recently. And I said, where was your right leg when you were working in the garden? I mean, yeah, he did the same thing. Why is your left leg so tired? Or, I've been walking to Compostela. That's why my left leg is tired. Yeah, right. Where was your right one? Did you leave it at home? Did you send it back home halfway? So, it's not that. It's the fact that the work that's been done is done under more pressure. That is why one side is tired more than the other. Yeah? So, again, we go by disease, definition of disease. In that medical definition, we've said the definition, but it says there, structure and function of the body. What are mental disorders and diseases then? Because it's not part of the medical definition of a disease. Not even part of it. Don't worry about it. Yeah? Don't go and think too deeply about it. Because as far as the medical profession is concerned, mental disorders are physical imbalances. An imbalance in your hormone system or in your neuropeptide system. And they can be rectified by taking medication to either increase production or decrease in production. So all your mental disorders can be brought back to a physical thing, a thingy-me-bob. So therefore, that's how they approach it. It still comes under the definition of the body. Even stress. Yeah? And you don't have to have a discussion with your doctor about this. Just look at what they recommend as the appropriate treatment. That will tell you everything. They talk about stress. They talk about mental problems, mental pressures. They talk about that. What is their treatment? Antidepressants. Yeah? Tranquilizers. What is that? That's physical. That's material. So they don't believe that you can do, even psychiatrists. It's about prescription. It didn't used to be like that. Talk to Freud and Jung. It was different. But now it is chemical. Everything is chemical. Chemical is physical matter. Okay? Right. Let's see if we can work this out. So, the system, in a natural, spontaneous way, is at every moment in time working to try and maintain a balance. So it's constantly responding. Most of that you won't know. There's no outward sign. For instance, the idea that in the winter your circulation system diverts or retracts inwardly, and in the summer it opens up outwardly. Do you notice that? You go, ooh, you can feel the blood flowing there now. Now, all of those adjustments are done without you noticing. Why are there no signs for those? Because you don't need to know. It's all been taken care of. It's all part of your survival. If the natural healing didn't do this for you, you would get it wrong time and time and time again. You would die. So, they'd rather not tell you about it. If you don't know about it, it won't hurt you and you won't interfere. Hey, yippee! But when it goes on for a while, then we start noticing. Then we do get messages. Yeah? And then those messages, we go, oh, there's something wrong. Which means I'm ill. But that means that what we call a disease is actually a natural healing. That this occurs without me being aware of it, fine, forget it. Now I become aware of it, and I am told there is something wrong with me. So I'm ill. But it's a result of a healing process. The diseases, what we call diseases, are the direct result of a healing process. Okay, let's have a look. We're going to stick mostly with contraction because most of the diseases or the suffering that people do are due to increased pressure on the field. Contraction happens within the systems, and what does that mean? On the lymphatic system, it means that my lymph nodes are going to swell up. Why are they doing that? They're doing that because my lymphatic fluid becomes more thick. Compressed, it means more thick. These lymph nodes are trying to get rid of the stuff, the physical matter that makes it thicker. So the enlarged lymph nodes are a sign of a healing. In circulation, thick blood, oh my God, going to have a stroke, a heart attack, yeah? Too much cholesterol in it, whatever. What happens? Yes, my heart muscle may increase in size because if it can contract better, it can help with the movement of the blood. Blood vessels will enlarge too and get more powerful muscles around. Other things will happen. Same here. Here, these are glands. The glands on the circulation system will also enlarge. Pancreas. No, on the circulation system it's liver. And kidneys will work harder to clean up. The digestions, for instance, the wall may thicken because of the pressure, which is actually an inflammation process, which we see in ulcers and appendicitis, as an example. Those are all healing mechanisms. We call them disease, and we fight this. While your system, your body, is trying to fight that. The contraction, the pressure that is put on it. Mobility. So my movement system contraction in my muscles give me cramp. If the deeper muscles stay in cramp for a long time, that is the cause of your arthritis. The structure is starting to crumble under the pressure. It's nothing more than that. If you do it for 2 days, it doesn't matter, you know. Those bones will hold out. But if you do it for 20 years, for 30 years, for 40 years, bits will start to fall off. But in essence, this is trying to hold it together. It's no longer doing it effectively, but it's still trying to hold it together. What have we got? Sensory system, things like cataract, hearing loss, ear infections, nasal infections, throat infections, all healing mechanisms, natural healing mechanisms. They happen spontaneously. You don't ask for it. You don't notice the disease, or you refuse to notice the disease. You know there is a lot of pressure on your life. But we have to carry on, don't we? Have to earn money. Really? You don't earn any money anymore when you're dead. But society has found a way around it. Because if you can prove that you no longer can work, then it's okay. All the others have agreed to pay for you. Isn't that nice of them? Only now, they may not be so happy anymore, because there's now more of you who are sitting down all day long, and less of you who are actually having to pay for it. It's not working that way. But these are, if we start to realize that these are healing attempts. Nervous system. Put more pressure on the nervous system so that the messages are not getting through properly. Paralysis. Development of MS. Alzheimer's. Nothing more than that. It's trying to contain the pressure that's put on the system. It's not effective, I grant you that. But it's not the disease. The disease is energetic. It's this pressure that is put on the field. And within the field is one specimen, one human being with 7 systems. And depending on which system feels the most of that pressure, that will eventually start to dysfunction, and bits of it, of the structure will crumble, as for instance in arthritis or in MS, that certain nerve pathways are no longer usable. Yeah. Glandular, any menstrual problems, infertility, chronic infections, recurring infections, all healing process, not disease. Yeah? It's an important thing to understand. So if people now say, you know, I'm suffering from, or the doctor has diagnosed me with, what can I do in a natural sense, in a natural way to heal? I go, diagnosis of the doctor is useless. Tell me what you feel. Tell me what pain you got. Tell me where you have inflammation, infections. Tell me that, and then maybe we'll be able to work out what kind of pressures are behind the healing response that your doctor is diagnosing. Let's work it out a bit more. So we're mainly talking about contraction diseases. The acute disease is the constant changes of energy, and your system automatically responds. By doing what? It increases the temperature. So the first healing response to a contraction disease, to an increased outside pressure, is inflammation. So that's normal. All inflammations happen spontaneously. The doctor can never give you a cause for it. Never. So, who is behind it? Nature is behind it. The nature that you got inside yourself that says, how can I stay alive in these circumstances? So we increase the pressure inside the tissues, the temperature inside the tissues. We warm it up. Thereby they expand, which is the contra movement to what is causing the disease. If we can decrease the pressure on the system, what does that mean? It means what we naturally do when we're ill. We go to bed. Less movement. You stop eating. I'm not hungry. Less movement in your digestive system in this case. Yeah? Oh, can you draw the curtains? Make it a bit darker. Less pressure on my sensory system. Yeah? You don't want, at that time, you don't want Queen blaring out of the boxes as loud as you possibly can. You want it to be quiet. Yeah? Less pressure. So you decrease the pressure. That's your instant reaction. And it's natural. My cat does it. My dog does it. My canary does it. Yeah? And what do we do? We get up in the morning and we go, I need to go to work. Oh, take some ibuprofen. I'll be alright. Yep. For one day, for 1 week, for 1 month, yes, you'll be alright. But you no longer get the signal. You don't know what's happening anymore and how bad it is. Yeah? So, when this is not enough to get myself back in balance, I'm not going to say to reverse the imbalance, because that's not what it is. I'm not going back to before my inflammation. It may seem to you like that, because by and large, I'm the same person. But in effect, you're not. Every morning you wake up as a different person. You don't see it that way. You don't have to. But go and have a look in the family photo album. Today, and all those mornings in between that you've woken up and not being a changed person. How come you're so changed from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago? You're completely changed. Even your physical appearance has changed. And if a lot of dramatic things have happened in the meantime, you know that emotionally you have changed too. So why do you say every morning when you look into the mirror and you go, oh, I know you, I saw you yesterday, I recognize you, you're still the same person? It's not true. We're moving to a different balance before after the inflammation, infection, whatever. But if the system, with all its efforts of increasing the temperature inside and the tissues and decreasing the pressure on life or on the systems, if that is not enough to get back into some sort of easy balance, then it moves on. We get signs, signals that either repeat themselves regularly, every few weeks get an ear infection, or the baby, a small child gets an ear infection, right? Which means you haven't solved the problem. The child is unable to regain a balance because it keeps happening. Yeah? Or you get signs and they're there all the time. Yeah? My back hurts all the time. I cannot see properly anymore. My eyes are deteriorating all the time. So that happens when this healing approach, natural healing approach, doesn't give me the appropriate effect. Now I need to give it some help. And this is important in order to know what to do. And after the break, we'll come back to that in detail. But basically what you now need to do is you need to wake up, increase the natural response. This is a living organism. We have the advantage that a living organism is going to defend its life. It's going to fight back. Right? So, what happens? I need to counteract a pressure. I have a natural response that lowers the pressure. So, but it's not enough. Right? Now I'm into a chronic situation. Here I don't need to do anything. Now I need to do what? Do exactly what your system doesn't want. So you're no longer going to try and decrease the pressure. You're going to increase the pressure. Why would you do that? That will hurt. Yep. And you know what your system does? It doesn't like pain. So it goes, oh damn, you know, that extra pressure I need to get rid of. So, how can your internal system get rid of that extra pressure? It's by decreasing the pressure inside the tissues. So you get a response from your living tissue, from your organism, that is exactly the response that is required to help what it already was doing, in this case decreasing the pressure. Talk about that later in practical terms. But what I want to point out here is that this is a natural response. If you put pressure on the energy field automatically, instantly responds by trying to blow the tissues up again and get back to better balance. When the pressure is too much and the system can't handle it, it tries a couple of inflammation periods, you know, one after the other, and it's still not happening, it's still not clearing it up, it's still not reducing the pressure. Then you intervene, and what you do is you go, there, do you like that? And the system wakes up and goes, my God, that was too much pressure. Oh dear. And it shoots into a second modus, far more aggressive and far more powerful, to decrease the pressure from inside. It's all mumbo jumbo to you, but do you know shiatsu?
Yeah.
What does shiatsu do?
Presses down.
It presses where it hurts, right? And what happens later? Oh, later I feel better. Even to the point that there is a story from the Second World War, the Japanese concentration camps. And so, I'd say it's a story, okay? But in the Japanese concentration camps, they wanted information, military information, so on and so forth. And so there is a way of torturing people, to try and get more information. But the Japanese were clever, because they thought, well, if I beat him up, somebody's going to notice. Yeah, not good for my image, and nobody's going to believe me anymore, and so on and so forth. And they were very clever, because they said, we've got a method that will hurt, particularly these Westerners, because they're not used to it. It's going to hurt them dramatically, and nobody's ever going to know. It's called shiatsu. They use these pain points, pressure on the pain points, for torture.
That's how they do it.
Yep. But there was a nasty side effect to this. Because over the months, all their prisoners got stronger and better and healthier and had less pain, so they stopped the torture method. Why? Because those systems responded to that inside healing, and so they got better, not worse. Yeah? So your acute healing is always effective. Even if it's ineffective, it's the right thing to do at the right moment. Yeah? There's nothing we need to do, just let it happen. Which means, if you get an inflammation of a joint, of an ear, or whatever it is, basically watch it. It comes and it goes. If it doesn't go, we're into this situation, right? And then we know that it was still the right response, but it's not enough. So we need more of it, and in order to create more, we need to stimulate the healing, not fight the disease. Your system knows how to balance whatever is there. You don't. Trust me, you don't. And the expert, he doesn't know it either. Just to complete, expansion diseases is when your tissues open up, right? Like they do with an inflammation. But the inflammation is not an expansion disease. Inflammation is a reaction. So it's a healing method. These are different things. So this, as an acute disease, means, expansion means a higher rate of vibration. So there's more movement. Okay? So you need, in order to survive that, or in order to be able to live that way, you need a very solid structural base. Now, just to give you an idea how that is possible, because most people are not made that way, but some people are. Some people have very flexible joints. Yeah? We see them in theaters or dance or circus or that sort of thing, right? They're deeper muscles, the muscles that hold their joints together, they are extremely tight. Extremely tight. And because they're so solid there, they can bend, like the palm tree. Yeah? It's not that they've got big muscles there, they're just very tight, which makes them powerful. So a solid base is where there is not much room for movement, but there is no need for that. In this example, the joints are kept, the bones that make up the joint are kept together in a very narrow range. But we move with our outside muscles, big muscles on the outside. And so, if this is very solid, then I can bend this a long way before this starts complaining. Yeah? So, also the mind is more flexible, jumping, yeah? Can do 3 things at the same time, or so it thinks. Yeah? Lots of energy moving around because of the high rate of vibration. So again, what do we do? Yeah, as a result, as a reaction, a response, a healing response? Decrease the mind. We're going to use up the energy that is available and that is floating around. In principle, you have an increased temperature. It is there, but we don't actually notice it. These people run on a higher temperature, right? if you, in the middle of the winter, down the beach here, see somebody running in his shorts and t-shirt, you may think he's a loony. On the other hand, you may be right, and if you know him very well, you're probably right. But he also may be one of these people that has got more expansion range, so he's got more energy to burn off floating around, which may mean that he literally does feel warm enough. If that happens all the time, then again, it's an ineffective response. What we need to do here, that means this is a mind that is running riot, out of control. Yeah? Out of control mind. Flexibility of joints, that can cause problems too, but that the physical part, on the whole, tends to rectify itself with inflammations, with contractions, with injuries as well. Yeah? But the mind is a difficult one, and because it's expansion is getting looser, less solid, so less matter and more energy, more emotions, more thoughts. Yeah? What we need to do is not to try, you can try and reduce the amount of energy floating around in that person, but then you basically have to cool him down. So you sit him in an ice box, put a lid on it for a day or two. Yeah? In acute situations, this may well work if somebody is completely out of his mind, if you like, and you throw a bucket of ice water over them. That may just shock them enough for you to get back in touch with him and say, calm it down. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, and you can, or the environment can catch it early enough. Ultimately, it's the individual who has to become aware of what he's doing, right? Once he's aware, he can then interfere. He can redirect his energy. And one way is to make it the energy more fixed. A practical way that we do that is send him to a garden centre. Yeah? Go and work in a garden centre. With your hands in the soil. Slowly. Can't do it quickly, you do it slowly. You have to do it mathematically. Yeah? So that kind of thing. You need to get them to use the energy, but to get the energy fixed, rooted, if you like. So couple the energy to physical matter. Redirect the energy can also be done on a mind level, but then you really have to be careful that they're not going to run away with themselves. When they get excited about a project, that's the problem. You know, they're going to do that project and they're going to do it well, but they don't stop. It goes on and on and on and on. And they basically build, well, they go on until they break the project. They blow it apart just because of the amount of energy that they put into it, and the structure is not solidly based. Ideally, anybody who has a project to work out, it should be done in 3 stages, ideally. Yeah? What you need to start with, you need somebody who's got boundless energy, who can focus his energy, who doesn't stop with it in front of obstacles. So you need an expansive mind, powerful, yeah? And finds a way through all kinds of obstacles to set up this project. Once the project is started, you have to pull him away and you put another person in charge. This is a person, it's more of Vata type, not the Pitta type. This is a person who still is very light, who can move things forward, who's not going to be stuck into details, but is going to be more careful. So there's a bit of a better balance. This person's task is then to make the project run. It was started up, but now make it run and expand properly. Once you've got it all set up and it's running properly and it's the way you want it, you need a different person in charge, because the person who's now in charge will always be looking for new ways to expand. It's never enough because it's got too much expansion still in him. Now you need solid. So now you need a third person in charge to lead it over the centuries. A person who is happy to do every day the same work again, the same thing, over and over again, who will solve problems that are there, but is not looking for any other problems. He will keep it going for decades. That's the ideal way of working together. You need 3 different types, because there's 3 different stages of setting things up. Okay, so it's all about energy, it's all about balance. The balance shifts all the time, but the only thing that we need to look at is contraction and expansion. And we don't need to do anything, because what you call disease is a healing response. Let it happen. If you notice that it's ineffective, then you may want to interfere. We're going to have a break, and then we're going to see what that interference could look like, what that could look like, to make it as effective as you possibly can, and not getting lost in worries in what might happen. One thing to understand is your system was made spontaneously. You came into this life, nobody asked you anything. This system, each of you, every individual organism, has only one inherent purpose, and that is to keep alive for as long as it can under whatever circumstances. Whether that's 5G or not, it doesn't matter. We'll try to adapt. The purpose of all that is to keep the species alive. But as an individual, you don't have to worry about it, because you can't do anything about it. You don't have to save anybody, only yourselves. That's the last chapter. How can we save ourselves? Bugger the rest. See you later.